Welcome to notebook number 5, the 5-step process for data exploration. So this is a fairly simple and straightforward process that I came up with for my students to explore data within a Jupyter notebook. So when I was teaching, I noticed a lot of notebooks were becoming very messy. Students were becoming lost in their cells. They would lose variables. They would overwrite variables in the same cell. They wouldn't know what a particular variable was at one point. So I developed this to provide some structure when going through a data exploration so that you could keep track of what was happening and minimizing the risk of sort of losing a variable or just not understanding what exactly a variable was. So with that said, let's get to it and let's go ahead and read the 5 steps, and then we will implement them. So step number 1, write and execute a single line of code to explore your data. So one of the main issues I had with a lot of students was that they wrote too many lines in a single cell. That's what I really want to avoid, especially when first learning pandas, when doing a data exploration for the first time. This is even what I do when I explore data. I try to minimize the amount of code that I have in a single cell. Okay, step 2, verify that this line of code works by inspecting the output. Number 3, assign the result to a variable. Number 4, within the same cell in a second line, output the head of the data frame or series. And number 5, continue to the next cell. Do not add more lines of code. Okay, so like I said, very simple and straightforward, but really will help you explore data in a Jupyter notebook. Let's go ahead and see this. We will read in the movie data set. And even here, we are sort of exemplifying this 5-step process. We're only doing one main line over here, and that is reading in the data frame and then just outputting the head and moving on to the next one. So let's just say we want to do some data exploration step, and we're going to keep it simple, and we're just going to move the title into the index. This is really the only thing that we've learned thus far. So we'll just say set index equal to title. So we'll write and execute a single line of code. That's all we're doing. And so that's it. That is step number 1. Step number 2 is to verify that this line of code works by inspecting the output. And this is key. When you're doing data exploration in pandas, you can't just assume that you've run the exact right piece of code and then try to do more data manipulation down here. We have to really inspect every single line of code that is written. And so if we look over here at the output, we see that it's returned the data frame, and it looks like it has put the index or the title in the index. So that looks correct. All right, so let's move on. And this is all going to happen in a single line. I should say this is all this 5-step process is going to happen in a single cell, but I can't show it in a single cell. We'll just show the final result in a single cell when we get there. Okay, so we've done step 2, we've verified. Step 3 is to assign the result to a variable. So we'll say, say something like movie 2. And so our single line of code is just this. All right, so movie 2. That is step number 3. We'll assign the result to a variable. So whatever data exploration step we did, we will assign it to a variable. Let's go ahead and execute that. Now step 4 is within the same cell in a second line, output the head of the data frame or series. All right, so again, we're not going to keep going and doing more some more code, at least not yet. So I'm just going to copy and paste. So what we do here is once you've done your single line of data exploration or data manipulation or whatever you're doing in pandas, you will do movie.head, and then that sort of completes it. Step 5 is just go to the next cell. Do not add more lines of code. And the reason I like to keep things to a minimum is that you have very good traceability of your work. You can see that if every cell has one change to your data frame, then you can easily see where it's been and where it's come from. So you can very nicely step through your code one at a time. Okay, so that is it for the 5-step process. I highly suggest that you do this, especially when learning. When you get a little bit more advanced, of course, you can put more lines into a single line or single cell, and the final product eventually of a data analysis could be moved out of a notebook into a Python script. In that case, obviously, you'll have many, many lines of code. But the notebooks especially are very useful, and I think just easier to navigate if you keep the code in them to a minimum.